Previously on
Death by Dragons.
I'm deliriously happy to present to you the official Death by Dragons rundown of the best and worst dragons in Kings of War.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
You don't like my definition? Make your own video. Go on, I dare you.
Hello everybody, I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have a Death by Dragons Best Dragons to Die By list, which is objectively the best title. First off, we're going to talk about the criteria of what makes a good or a bad dragon. We're going to open with Steve's basic tenets of 1, it must be a titan or hero titan, and 2, it must fly, so fair enough. But we're going to move on to the basics of what is a dragon profile in Kings of War. Starting on the left, we have the Dragon Kindred Lord, or the Elven Dragon, which has shows you your basic stat profile, right? Speed 10, melee 3+, defense 5+, 10 attacks, 17-19 nerve, 315 points, right? And I guess height 6 is another basic. And then for special rules, you have Crushing Strength 3, you have Fly, you have Inspiring, you have Nimble. And then often you have some sort of melee fixer or maybe a nerve fixer. And then you also maybe have some sort of range attack, a basic one, right? So that's our core that we form on. And then on the right, we have an honorable mention of a Lord on Chimera. This is actually... I know Steve listed it as one of the worst dragons in the game. I don't think that's true. It's not particularly good in Northern Alliance, I feel, just because Northern Alliance doesn't need it, but this is a huge improvement over that basic dragon. For 5 more points, it gains Very Inspiring and Icy Breath 10 while retaining that elite melee. So Icy Breath 10 is significantly better than Dragon's Breath, in my opinion, because for a minus 2-inch range, it only has a 10-inch spell range. It does ignore Stealthy and ignore Individual, and oftentimes Dragon's Breath you're just never going to use in a game. Like, I don't remember the last time I used my breath attack on a dragon, just not that useful. But the Icy Breath, I could see maybe a game, like a turn in a game in a tournament that I will use Icy Breath, because there are times where your dragon needs to be dealing damage or wants to be dealing damage to a target, but it's turned to face it, so it needs to fly over it, right, get in the flank and produce some issues for that unit. But if you're using Dragon's Breath, you're probably just going to do nothing, right? Because again, you're taking all those negative modifiers, or you often will take nothing. Versus Icy Breath, where you're already near the target and you might as well just get a couple bits of damage in, and you know, the frozen rule is a bit of a cherry on top. Anyway, these are my basic dragons. I think the Lord on Chimera, like, I would give it a solid C+, and I give the Dragon Kindred Lord a C, right? In the A through F scale. But enough about that. Let's talk about what you want. The top 3 worst dragons. So we're going to start with the best of the worst, and we're going to end at the bottom of the heap. So first off, we have number 3, the Phoenix. I know Steve listed this in the bottom pile as well, and I kind of agree, only because I believe we're basing this off of melee potential a lot, and the Phoenix just doesn't have it. It's only Crush 1, it has 5 attacks, and it's defense 3+. Now I will say the Phoenix is one of my favorite support pieces in the game. I think it's amazing, especially in Salamanders, because they don't have the amazing Tree Herder, which has Radiance of Life as well. But having Radiance of Life, heal 5 on a big flying piece, right, is just, it's just amazing, right? It heals so much damage off a game, and then on top of it, it does deal damage, right? Fireball 10's okay, Fireball's not the best spell, but again, that being able to fly into a flank, 5 attacks, melee 3+, Crush 1 is enough to swing combats a lot, and still getting that Radiance going. So I think the Phoenix is significantly better than some people think, but I still wouldn't rate it very high in terms of a list just about dragons, especially because it's a bird. So moving forward, we have my number 2 worst dragon, the Archfiend of the Abyss. Now I know Steve specified that he was talking about the Crone Bound, but I don't think it's that big of a difference. First off, Drain Life I think is super overblown, and secondly, it's been nerfed a lot recently with the -1 to its end value, so it's a lot weaker than it was. I will say the Cronebound is significantly better than the base Archfiend, but that's why this one is here instead. I don't think they're that different though. So you lose 1 attack, you lose -1, you take -1/-1 on your nerve, and then you gain Brutal, you gain Fury, right? And Vicious is equal to elite. They're identical mathematically in terms of melee attacks, so that doesn't matter. You do gain Fireball, which is better than Dragon's Breath, but I don't think it's worth losing an attack, and more importantly, losing that nerve, right? Like, I get that it has Fury, but we're gonna see some better dragons later that also have nerve modifiers and are still 17-19. I don't get why this thing's 16-18, especially on a 75 base, on a Titan base, right? It's just insane. Brutal, not good enough, especially because Brutal can be bought with a 10-point item, while there is no 10-point item to get +1 attack. So yeah, this is a bad dragon. I don't think it's bad enough not to field in Forces of the Abyss, but I never would field it. So moving on to the #1 worst dragon in the game, I vote the Supreme Ironcaster on Great Winged Half-Breed. This thing has a lot of the same issues of the Archfiend before it. It's 16-18 nerve, it only has 8 attacks, so even weaker, but even worse, it's only melee 4+, in terms of its ability to deal damage. It's just, ugh. It does have its Ariog Fool's Flame, I don't know how to pronounce that. I think that's elite on Fireball, which it does have Fireball 12, that's excellent. It has the rest of the basic rules I'd be looking for, right? It's got that Crush 3, it's got the Inspire, it's got the Nimble, and it has Vicious, which again is the same as elite in terms of melee, right? But it's losing so much in its melee potential. It's still 280 points base, which is, you know, a 35-point discount, but you'd be really looking to maybe get its spells, and it can't swap its Fireball out for, say, Lightning Bolt 6, which would be way, way better than Fireball, even with the Flame special rule. Doesn't matter, Lightning Bolt's just so much better than Fireball. But it has to always buy its spells, it can't swap them. 280 for Fireball 12, not gonna do it. I'd pay 35 points any day of the week for +2 attacks, +1/+1 nerve, and +1 melee. It's just not good enough. But anyway, that's why it's at the bottom of the heap. Now let's move on to the top 3 best dragons, from the worst to the best to the king of the war. Let's open with number 3. My number 3 pick is Apophis, and I think this is a weird miss from Steve. A lot of Living Legends missing from his pile. Apophis is an excellent Titan. You know, it's got the basic dragon stats, right? 10 speed, 3+ melee, 5+ defense, so on and so forth. But it's dash 19 nerve, which is way, way better than being 17-19. And then it has, for its additional special rules, Cloak of Death, one of the best special rules in the game. I think if it weren't for Fearless, it would be the best. It's an amazing rule. It has Life Leech 1. Life Leech is another really strong rule. It's very inspiring instead of inspiring. And then it has Winds of Death, which I believe lets it re-roll 1s to hit with Drain Life, and Surge, which has Drain Life 7 and Surge 8. So again, much like the Icy Breath, the Drain Life is for when you're going, okay, so I'm fighting a unit that maybe could do too much damage to Apophis, maybe could even pop him. So instead, you're just gonna fly around it and get your Drain Life in until you get those flank charges, and that's a perfectly fine way to use it. Now, I don't list it higher in the list because it is 360 points, and in Empire Dust, you know, Empire Dust has cheap units, but doesn't have that many cheap units. 360 is a big chunk of change, especially if you're playing the inferior 2,000 points. So yeah, I don't really see this being too high up there, but it's too powerful just to skip out on. I think Apophis is people are sleeping on this guy. Moving on to number 2, we have the Crudger on Winged Slasher. This is amazing. This is what I would view as my value choice, and is again why I know Steve put the Revenant King on Great Flying Worm, but one that did get a 15-point increase. It doesn't cost 250 points, Steve. Obviously, it's 265. Duh. But the Wing Crusher, I'm like, oh, the Crudger on Wing Slasher, this thing is a real beast. It has all the basic dragon stats, you know, 10-3-5, 10 attack, 17-19 nerve. It's Crushing 3. It has Fury, and then it's Inspiring Nimble, right? This is what I'm talking about with that Archfiend, because this thing is 285 points compared to that Archfiend, and it still has Fury. It doesn't have Brutal, but it can buy it for 10 points, right? This is an amazing value dragon, right? Like, in the same way that people were looking at Revenant King on Great Flying Worm, this is it for Orcs. I don't think, again, you can do really well without it in Orcs. Orcs are actually a relatively powerful army. In fact, I think relatively is wrong. They are just a powerful army in 3rd Ed. And the Crudger is one of the many ways they have to just punch someone in the face. So yeah, I think the Crudger on Wing Slasher is an excellent beast. And unfortunately, it would have had number 1 were it not for Scud Kuzuluk, the unpronounceable. So Scud the Bud it blows my mind, Steve, that you did not put this at number 1. It is 345 points for all those dragon profiles, right, that I just listed. It's got the 1719 nerve, I talked about that before. But instead of having a melee fixer, it has Rally 2, which is an amazing rule, even in Ratcan, because Ratcan, I think, have become more and more of an elite army than they were in previous editions. I mean, I would still say they're a combined arms army. They're not really elite, but they're not spamming out. I mean, there's no Wretch regiments anymore. The Tunnel Runners don't have Inspire anymore. Like, Scud the Bud here, excellent pick. And most importantly, 13 attacks. It is so much better to have +3 attacks than to re-roll ones. So much better, especially in Kings of War where you're multiplying in flanks and rears. And lastly, Lightning Bolt 5. Lightning Bolt 5 is significantly better than Fireball 10. It's weird that they are costed on the same level, because Lightning Bolt is way better. Having double the range, having Piercing 1, and ignoring some of the negative modifiers, which it ignores Stealthy, Fireball doesn't, is amazing. Lightning Bolt, I'm sure if you've played Kings of War in 3rd, you know Lightning Bolt is a great spell. So Scud the Bud, number 1 here. Excellent dragon, and pretty killer model. So that's going to do it for our video today. I hope you guys liked it, and if you didn't, feel free to comment below. Remember that my name is Death by Dragons. Put all your hate mail there. All right, later guys.